Dr. Nandipha Magudumana made her second court appearance in the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court today. She's facing charges of murder, aiding in escape and violation of corpses, among others. She was remanded in custody until the 3rd of May. Our senior reporter, Silindelo Masikane, was in court, and now she's going to bring us the latest as we look into what happened in court today. Silindelo, good afternoon. Welcome to today. I understand, as we know, that Dr. Magudumana's father, for example, got bail of 10,000 rand or so. What about the others?
Well, Bradan, the others remain behind bars until they apply for bail on the 3rd and the 4th of May. That is when the case has been postponed to. But interestingly enough, the state prosecutor telling the judge, the magistrate rather, that an agreement had been reached with Zolile Sekeleni's lawyer that won the murder charge. The state has actually decided to drop it. You would remember that during his first appearance, he, along with the first accused, the former G4S employee, were charged with murder. We were told that they were the masterminds behind the escape saga, but it seems after reviewing some of the information, the NPA has decided to drop that murder charge, meaning that he's only facing Schedule 1 offences such as fraud and defeating the ends of justice, as well as aiding and abetting a prison convict. We did pose questions to the NPA with regards to whether they aren't really concerned with Sekeleni trying to evade his trial. They said they don't believe that he's going to try and evade trial, and that they have put strict bail conditions in order to allow him to be released on bail. Let's take a listen.
There are exceptional circumstances in a case which we took into consideration, and we decided as a state we are not going to oppose his release on bail. But the request that we made is that there must be conditions attached to that release on bail. And what we're hoping is that he's going to abide by all the conditions that are attached to his release on bail.
So that is the NPA spokesperson giving us a sense as to why they decided to agree on the 10,000 rand bail granted to Zolile Sekeleni, Dr. Nandipha's father, to give us some legal analysis as to what we saw transpiring in court. I am joined by legal expert Mr. Marius Dutoy. Thank you so much for your time once more. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to see what transpired inside court. What I found quite interesting was the prosecutor in particular requesting that Dr. Nandipha show her face to the court. I'm not sure if you picked that up. Perhaps maybe talk to me about why that was important and why the state would then agree to a 10,000 rand bail for her father in particular.
So let me firstly say, and it's nice to chat to you again, Slee. First and foremost, we must remember these proceedings are held in an open court. There's no reason to conceal the identity of any accused here. The only time where you really would have the identity of an accused concealed is where an ID parade has to be held, and you don't want the witnesses to see the face of the so-called accused or suspect before the ID parade is held, and hence you would ask them to appear with a balaclava or something covering their face. But as a rule, it's an open court, and as such, you can't be attending the court with a hoodie on as well as a mask to try and conceal your identity. We understand that due to COVID, it's your discretion if you want to wear a mask or not. But I would expect the court to say to her, ma'am, this is an open court. I expect you to uncover your face during the course of the proceedings. Once we've postponed the matter, you can, of course, then cover your face if you wish to do so. But the rule is, these proceedings are open. There's no reason to conceal your identity.
Now, when it comes to the state now, all of a sudden dropping that murder charge, and now we see Dr. Nandipha's father only facing Schedule 1 offences. What do you make of the state dropping this charge essentially a week later? Do you think that after reviewing some of the evidence, they're seeing that perhaps they won't be able to successfully get a conviction out of that charge?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Slee. For the state to prosecute Zolile for the murder, they would have to have evidence linking him with the murder of this person. If they have no evidence substantiating such a charge, well, then you can't charge the person with it. And then you shouldn't charge the person with it. Remembering at this stage, the accused don't really have insight into the docket. So we don't have the opportunity of opening the statements and having a look to see what witness A, B, and C is going to say. You only get access to the docket much later in the proceedings. And for that reason, the state is absolutely at this stage taking the court into their confidence by disclosing certain facts to the court. So if they don't link an accused, there's no way you can say, I'm charging this person with that offense, knowing that my evidence doesn't substantiate that charge. So if they did do that, of course, they would open themselves up to unlawful prosecution or malicious prosecution, and they could ultimately be sued for that. So I would imagine the fact that the state doesn't have enough evidence to charge him with that means that he's only left maybe with harboring an escaped fugitive or escaped prisoner, and that carries a 10-year sentence. So the charges are still serious against him, but ultimately, if you can't really link him with the whole escape saga, then you have to say to yourself, well, then there's no reason to oppose bail. However, when it comes to the rest of them, of course, that's a different kettle of fish altogether.
Lastly then, Mr. Du Toit, talk to me about perhaps what we could see unfolding on the 3rd and the 4th of May with the expectation that the remainder of those in custody will try and apply for bail. In particular, Dr. Nandipha, we have gotten a sense that the state will oppose all bail for all of the remaining accused still in custody. But the likelihood of Dr. Nandipha being granted bail, what do you foresee happening there?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Slee, that the state will definitely oppose bail. Otherwise, they wouldn't have arranged this date for bail. Otherwise, bail would have been already granted at this stage. So this clearly indicates that they oppose bail. It will be a formal bail application. And what the state would typically do is they would always charge you with all the offences they believe they can prove. If murder is one of those charges, without a doubt, you would put it to the accused. Because you must just remember that at this moment, if you just look at the father in isolation, it's only Schedule 1, so they should be granted bail unless the state can really put grounds forward in the interest of justice that indicates you shouldn't be granted bail. Now, when it comes to murder, that onus moves to the accused. Now, the accused has to show that the interest of justice permits your release on bail. And if we say this was premeditated murder, if we say this person was specifically killed with a view of using his body so that they could have some sort of a conspiracy in respect of the escaping, well, now we're talking about a Schedule 6 bail application. You remind yourself, Slee, at the Oscar Pistorius bail application, the moment the state alleges a Schedule 6 bail application, it changes the complexion because now the accused has to prove exceptional circumstances before bail can be granted. And that means the accused has to make a full disclosure of his defense. And he has to take the court into his confidence to try and prove that, listen, there's a good chance of me being acquitted, or there's something exceptional that justifies me being granted bail. So unless they can do that, of course, the hurdle is so high that you'd probably say, well, in the circumstances, they will be unsuccessful. So unless the state case against them is really weak, if it's a Schedule 6, they will probably be remaining inside. If it's a Schedule 5, in other words, it's a murder that's not premeditated, well, then, of course, the interest of justice would only allow them to be released on bail if they're able to show those interests of justice. If they can show, I've got a fixed address, fixed abode. And keeping in mind with Dr. Nandipha, she has already fled the country with the suspect, arrested in possession of passports. She has assisted a person in escaping. So all the grounds you would think tends to show that we are dealing with a person that's a massive flight risk. And for that reason in itself, coupled with serious charges, you have to say the state has a good chance of having bail denied here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That is legal expert Marius du Toit, just unpacking some of the proceedings that we saw unfolding this morning. Bradan, we will be back here in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on the 3rd of May, when we are, of course, expecting those bail applications to be made.
Yeah, Silindelo, before you go, just finally, inside the court, were there any members of families, people there to witness this appearance in court today?
Yes, certainly there were. We saw a number of members of the Sekeleni family who, of course, had to secure the bail money, that 10,000 rand, and we understand it seems that they did. And Mr. Sekeleni was essentially snuck out of the Magistrate's court, and we understand that, in essence, he's on his way home to Port Edward, where, of course, he has to adhere to those strict bail conditions.
Thank you very much. Silindelo Masikane, I was seeing a reporter there just giving us an update of what happened in court and getting some legal analysis about this matter.